Apex 2025 is happening right now. We have Brad Garlinghouse and Monica Long both on stage answering questions. I've played different clips in some of the recent content and videos I've made, but this is watching the thing all the way through. I think it's about 30 minutes. So join me as I go through this live. I'll give you my live reactions and context when I think it's necessary. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I absolutely love all the support that I've been seeing recently online. My heart goes out to you guys. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and play this.
I think if you guys were celebs, there's an interesting play that you could have here. Maybe Branica or Money Brad. I don't know whichever ones that work for you.
Oh, that's a new one. I haven't heard that. That's good.
No, yeah.
I don't think it's going to catch on either.
Yeah, probably not.
But okay, so you've both been at Ripple now for a little while, over a decade. And Monica, just very briefly, what made you join Ripple all those years ago in 2013?
So it was one of the co-founders, Chris Larson, who's our esteemed executive chairman of our board. I'd known Chris from his prior life as founder CEO of Prosper. Chris is a serial fintech entrepreneur. He founded Elon in the 90s and then Prosper in the early noughts and then Ripple. And he is one of those people I think you can attest. Like, he's a real visionary. He sees, like, in decades far out timelines of where the world is headed. I just remember at that time, I was catching up with him in the summer of 2013, and he was just so excited. He was like on fire about the digital gold revolution with Bitcoin and so excited about Xrp Ledger being this whole new payment system for the world. And that was what he was talking about, Internet of Value, things that the whole industry talked about now, but he was talking about that way back then. So it was really, he inspired me to join.
Fantastic. And for you, a few years afterwards, you joined?
Yeah, I joined because Monica was there.
Not true.
Exactly. Like, it's kind of a funny story. I had been introduced to Bitcoin in 2012, and I invested a little bit in Bitcoin, but I always had this, and this is not an anti-Bitcoin statement. I'm pro-Bitcoin. I'm nervous every time I say anything that people are going to be like, oh, Brad's anti-Bitcoin. I'm not. But I remember thinking like that maybe the Achilles heel to Bitcoin might end up being this very anti-bank, anti-government. Yeah. And I still to this day, we're not going to have a completely separate parallel system. There's going to be lots of bridges between traditional finance and what we now call decentralized finance. And when I was recruited, and I got a recruiting call about Ripple, and I remember the recruiter called and he's like, have you heard of Ripple? I lied and I said yes. And I said, but remind me what they do. And actually, I mean, and Monica may remember this. He was describing a payments company, and I said, look, I'm not a payments guy. I gave them names of people I knew at PayPal and Visa and trying to like push it off to somebody else. And the recruiter kind of made fun of me because I wasn't working at the time. And he's like, what else are you doing? Like, just come in and meet with Chris. And I agree with Monica. I mean, Chris is one of these guys who just sees around corners. And like, we all have our own superpowers. And I think one of the things that has worked so well is the partnership between Chris and me and Monica. And that Chris sees around corners and we figure out, like, okay, how do we get there? And his vision has been incredibly consistent around this Internet of Value. And I think we still underestimate how significant a shift in how the world works that can and will be. And I think it's going to create a lot of tailwinds for the industry and for Ripple and for XRP.
Interesting to see that Brad Garlinghouse really didn't, he was trying to get somebody else the job, right? He didn't have any knowledge, or he had very limited knowledge about payments when he took the job at Ripple, but he knew how to manage and he knew people would follow him. I'm just trying to imagine what Ripple and XRP would look like today without Brad Garlinghouse. I don't know if I would be so into it without Brad Garlinghouse. I mean, he has been an incredible leader who I look up to all the time in this space. And I really think he's got a good head on his shoulders. And I think Ripple, having Monica Long, they just have a really incredible team of people. It feels special to me. It feels special. When I look around the crypto space, this particular company, it feels different for me.
I have two fun stories to add about that time. You did have a job.
I was an Uber driver.
You were an Uber driver. He was testing some markets with his other friends, potentially
bored
and exploring entrepreneurial opportunities. I remember that distinctly. And then two, Ashish Birla, who was our head of product for a very long time, GM of RippleNet, but he and I both were really excited to meet Brad and hopeful that he would come on board to Ripple. His fame from Yahoo was the Peanut Butter Manifesto. This concept of like, Yahoo lost its edge through lack of focus. And Ashish and I were feeling that of Xrp Ledger was this magnificent invention, and it was like a hammer looking for a nail. And so we really needed someone, a leader, to kind of drive focus within the business and focus until we could, build product market fit.
And here we are.
I was going to say, this is fascinating. It really is.
It's interesting, right? Where would Ripple be without that guidance, right? Brad Garlinghouse understood the reason Yahoo wasn't as successful as they could have been in the end is because they were trying to do too many things too quickly. This is why Ripple's been so surgical, right? They wanted to get in and fix cross-border payments and FX payments. They were able to accomplish that. Then they moved towards creating private ledgers for central banks around the world because they knew that is what customers were asking of them. Then they moved on to tokenization of financial assets, working with partners all over the world to build out that technology. Examples of that are the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. You have them working with Fubon Bank, doing tokenized HELOCs, right? A process that would take months in the regular world to get done. Now you can do within like 5 minutes and get pre-approved. And it's just these unique possibilities and angles and where Ripple was really focused on. They want to master an area and then move on. I just love that about them.
When you asked that question, you probably didn't expect
we're going to take up the whole time.
It was a gamble. But yeah, I think
I like it.
A lot of people here have got a little bit more insight about you. And they're going to get more as we go along. But we're going to play a little quick fire round to keep the momentum up, I think. So it's a game of underrated, overrated. And so it's where I'll put a phrase or a word and the simple answer of whether you think it's underrated or overrated. So we'll start off with a few easy ones. Lawyers working in crypto. Okay, Brad.
Well, you didn't say Stu Alderodi is underrated. Lawyers in crypto maybe at large, I think mostly underrated. Like they're not that all lawyers in crypto are wonderful, and certainly I've had encounters. I mean, the other side of the SEC case, those are lawyers at the SEC making arguments that you think are complete. I don't think they were good actors. And as the judge said, they were not following a faithful allegiance to the law. So those lawyers, I think, are overrated.
Okay. So I was kind of going in a different direction with this. As a child, you wanted to be a lawyer. You can dig into this a little bit as well.
So when I was a kid, this is, maybe I'm 10 or 12 years old. Like, you don't know anything. But my grandfather was a lawyer in the telecom industry, and I was enamored with, what I saw of his professional career. And I thought, I want to be a lawyer. Now, Monica thinks it's just because I like to argue.
Yeah, he does.
But yeah, that was my original. That's what I thought. But as you go through that journey, I don't know what we want to do when we're a kid versus what we end up doing. There's a gap.
There tends to be, yeah. So I tend to ask this a lot.
I'm interested. Is there anything that you wanted to be when you were a kid that it just didn't work out, but you still want to be that? I'll tell you one thing for me. One thing that I always wanted to do was be a fighter pilot. I don't have the body. I've had a lot of surgery and I have issues, severely unable to do those type of jobs. But I just thought how free that must be going, 700 or 1,000 miles an hour in a jet in the skies. I thought that would have been perfect. But let me know down below a little bit about you, because I'd love to better understand, what you were trying to achieve when you were a kid, and maybe if you were able to do that today.
But I think the next one was for you, actually. Orthopedic surgeons working in crypto.
So this Pat's also calling too. He'd asked us what had we wanted to be when we grew up. I was in elementary school and decided on being an orthopedic surgeon. It's not a great story. It's just that, being a doctor, I wanted to help people, but I knew that orthopedic surgery would be very difficult. I am someone, I think, a pattern. I like big challenges.
So you chose crypto.
I was going to say, there's no link whatsoever. But at least on yours, Brad, there is a little bit of a linkage there. And, the skills of argumentative seem to come across.
I didn't say I'm argumentative.
I said it.
I'm going to ask your team for up of the day.
They're paid to answer that correctly.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to switch gears now. Memecoins, underrated, overrated?
Overrated right now.
Agree on this one. I would say underrated, in so much as it if you take it for face value, there are a lot of meme coins that are outright scams. I see that.
99%.
In other cases, some have kind of miraculously like become real functioning markets around these meme coins. The thing that I think is really powerful, like you take some of these blockchain ecosystems, meme coins really drove a lot of the ecosystem build out. By that I mean wallet infrastructure and users and capital and new developers and that kind of thing. So I think that there's lasting impact from meme coins. And if you go back to like 2016, 2017, the ICO boom was the same for Ethereum.
Okay.
I mean, Monica's right. We're a little bit on the other side of this one. I think meme coins are generally, maybe grossly overrated because I see them as just not sustainable. I think one of the things that Ripple has done well, and I think many in the XRP community have done well, is think about it in long arcs of time. And I mean, look, are people going to make money or lose money in these short spikes in the meme coin industry? Sure. And I will also say I have been wrong on occasion about meme coins. For people who have followed some of my public statements, I used to really speak not so kindly towards Dogecoin. And I was just like, Dogecoin, like what? It literally was like created as a lark, right? I mean, it wasn't serious. I mean, it is literally a pile of shit as the logo. Like these are facts. I'm not making anything up.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And so I felt like it doesn't. I felt past tense that it didn't reflect well on our industry. If we're trying to engage institutions and build those bridges between traditional finance and decentralized finance, Dogecoin isn't representing us well. And at the time, I mean, some of the early inflation of Doge coins was outrageous and blah, blah, blah. But where I agree with Monica, and I think I got wrong, is Elon Musk willed Dogecoin into so much liquidity that like it's not going away. And like, okay, it's part of the ecosystem. It plays a role. But I think a lot of the meme coins, it's just like people trying to do these get rich quick rug pulls.
Yeah.
And it reflects badly on those of us in the industry trying to build real products for real customers that leverage these technologies. And then frustratingly, and I'll use a US example, you have a elected leader like Elizabeth Warren who doesn't focus on the good work that lots of people in this room and certainly at Ripple are doing and focuses on these negative use cases. And so I'm going with overrated.
Got you.
It's hard, right? If you take a look at them, if I wasn't around in 2016 or 17, I came in end of 2019. I've been in the crypto space since then. I got through the last bull market. What I think is different with this bull market compared to that one, because I don't know what to compare it to before that. I feel like more people were focused on investing in what they thought was utility, what they thought would still be here, in 6, 12, 24 months. People have shifted over the last few years to focus on the lottery tickets, the get rich scheme. And I've lost, tens of thousands of dollars, probably even more than that over the course of the last 5 years to meme coins and new DeFi scams. And, over the last few weeks, I've had some kind of come to Jesus moment with myself. I am no longer going to be investing in a lot of these things. I'm just going to be putting money into XRP and HBAR and a few other assets. A lot of people are talking about ZBIC and SH Stronghold and a few other things. I think that's where people really need to start focusing in and getting serious, because if you don't get serious now and you keep playing this meme coin game over the next 6 to 12 months, you might not even have any money to put into what actually might matter. And I think that's what people need to really start talking with, a financial advisor or financial planner, somebody that can really give them advice on how to do this next, 6 to 12 months so they can really take it up a notch and really be successful. I want to see everybody that watches this channel have success. That means a lot to me to see that.
Yeah, no, certainly there is a line. And I think in some ways it goes against the grain of why this all come around in the first place. Okay. Then one question I was kind of asked by your teams to ask is around what's the one crypto meme that perfectly captures the chaos or brilliance of the industry? And you've kind of...
Doge.
One. Yeah, okay.
I mean, for sure, Doge. I mean, it is both the chaos and the brilliance.
Yep.
And, look, in effect, Elon Musk, although he doesn't, to my knowledge, have an economic alignment with Doge, he spoke Doge into leadership and liquidity. And to some degree, liquidity begets liquidity. And as I said, like, I don't think Doge is going away. And, you know, others have obviously tried to replicate that in creating their own meme coins of many flavors. It's hard to, you know, part of that also is timing. You're early in the market. There weren't as many meme coins, if you will, where now you have an explosion that I just like, I don't really get it. But I've never purchased a meme coin.
Okay.
Ever.
Maybe today's the day.
And Monica, do you have...
If I did buy one, I'd buy the all the money XRP meme coin.
There
All
you
the
go.
money.
Wow.
Well, now you have to.
Hold on, let's just take a look real quickly here. Is there a meme coin on the XRPL? All the money. Let's just see if this coin exists. Because if it doesn't exist, yes, there's a meme coin in the XRPL called All the Money. It is community driven. Do the project team. Let's see here. Let's see. Is there any links to this thing? ATM. All the money. 3 million. Look at this. Of course, after Brad Garlinghouse talks about it, it goes to 3 million. Right? June 10th, nothing was going on here. And then, of course, he mentions it. Interesting how that works.
Okay, so you have a homework assignment. Sorry. Oh, the meme.
Yes.
Memes. So I think the "this is fine" meme
By the way,
resonates.
I feel like 25 people in the audience just went online. They're buying all the money.
no!
Don't do it.
You look.
Let me get in first. Just kidding.
What is happening? Okay.
Oh my God.
We've lost control.
Crazy
the
stuff,
meme
right?
of the dog holding the mug and it says "this is fine" and he's in an inferno, and I say that one because the whole industry, like, it's a nascent technology, and then it's also this new money. It's like building these new markets. So there's high highs and low lows, and the market is a roller coaster. And so in my decade at Ripple, you have to take the long view. You can't get hung up with whether it's a bull or a bear market. You have to really take that long view of what you're building toward. So this is fine resonates.
Okay. So we're going to move on to institutional use cases.
All right, institutional use cases. Since this video, I don't want it to be like 45 minutes, I'm going to cut it here and then we'll pick it up in part 2. We're getting to institutional. I thought this was a great first video, guys. A lot of really cool things that I never knew. I've made over 1,000 videos on Ripple and XRP, and I had no ideas about some of those really unique stories that Monica and Brad told. I felt that, you know, it really helps kind of connect to them a bit. And that was special. I'm glad that I did this live with you and we got to experience that together. I will see you in part 2. Aloha. Nothing in this video should be taken as financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. Please seek financial advice if you need it. Let's get back to the video.